Okay. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Well, welcome everyone. We were just a few of us who were here at the very beginning. We were a little bit afraid that this room was going to be empty, but I'm glad to see everyone here. Okay. Not that we wouldn't have had fun without everyone else, but it's nice to have you all here. So today, I think on the paper we were a little bit mistaken, but we're going to talk about visual literacy today. Okay, and how it impacts learning. Because of the lighting in the room, I already did some tests. For some parts of the presentation, I'm going to turn off the lights so that you get a better idea of the images that I'm going to present you. I really would like to thank you on behalf of National Geographic Learning for being here and for being interested in what we have to offer for you. Okay. So just in general, my understanding is that everyone here is a teacher, right? Okay, great. So I'm going to start by showing you an image, and I'm going to have a helper because I have to walk across. So would you be my light helper for today, please? Thank you. Okay. So what do you see? Just anybody? What do you see? Planet, the universe. What else?
Stars.
Stars. Anyone else?
Clouds.
Clouds, water, great. Okay, excellent. So let's talk about what's happening around the world, okay? And of course, I had to bring in an image to tell you, right? The world's population has been growing a lot. And with this growth, okay, you should see that also traveling has become even more accessible to more people. Okay, and technology has also made this possible. Why? Because people now know what's happening and they want to go see and find out. Okay, about 200,000 people move into cities, okay, because they're looking for this multicultural scenery to live at. And more than 4 billion people communicate with others through their cell phones. Is everyone here communicating through cell phones? Is anybody who's not using a cell phone right now? It doesn't matter if it's a smartphone or not. I'm just talking about cell phones in general. Is there anyone here that is not using a cell phone nowadays? Wow, okay. Usually there's one person everywhere I go. So that's excellent, okay? Social media website Facebook connects over how many people? Okay. And this is from a couple of years ago, so can you imagine how many people now they're connecting? And how many people upload YouTube videos? Yes. Okay. But it says hours. It's not people. It's hours of YouTube video. Is there anyone here who has a YouTube channel? No? Nobody uploads videos? Okay. You should, because you're English teachers. You should start doing it. It's very, very fun. I strongly advise you to start a YouTube channel and invite your students to upload videos or to tell you ideas as to upload them. You will get a lot more from your students if you do that. Okay, so now knowing what is going around the world, let's talk a little bit about history and images, okay? So can you tell me when was the first photograph taken? 1826, okay? It was taken by who? What was his profession? Okay. But what was he? What was his area of study? Okay. Okay. And then in 1861, okay, the first color photograph was taken by a physicist. Okay. In 1888, the first mass-produced camera was invented by Kodak company. Okay, I'm always amazed by looking at these facts. Let's move on into history. Okay, after the first mass camera, okay, the first compact camera, okay, became widely available. Can you look at the numbers at the bottom and see how drastically they changed once things were starting massively being produced? Okay. So we go from 0 to 1 billion, 3 billion, and then 10, 25, and then now look at this, okay? Now, visual literacy, photography, images have changed the way we see things, right? Has changed the way we communicate and even what we think about literacy. Before, if you said that a person was literate, that person was able to do what? To read. To read what? Because we can, words, okay? Simple sentence, what we call now written text, right? Because there are many texts now, okay? So as you can see, along history, images have been impacting the world and the way we see it, okay? Nowadays, this is the information we take in, okay? If this was, if the whole circle was, or the whole pie was 100%, what would be your guess as to how much visual information we get? 90, 95, okay? Anybody else? Now, I would like you to think about your lives and see if this is true for you, okay? For me, for example, I was here last week and I already told a few of you that I am a very visual learner, okay? For me, image has always had an impact in my life. The way I used to take notes, because now we take notes in computers, we even just take pictures, okay? But I always had a little bag with my colored pencils or with something that was colorful in my backpack, and I always had to have something to write on. And the way I will display the information on my notebooks, it was through color. That's how I remember things. So if I was studying for a test, I will have a different color for each of my subjects. And the way I remember information was by how it was displayed, if it was top or bottom, left or right, and what color it was, okay? That was for me how I studied. For me, it was very, very hard for a very long time when I was learning English to only have auditory input because I could not remember anything, okay? I can barely remember my name sometimes, okay? I am Dory with names. That's what my students call me. They call me Teacher Dory because they would tell me their name and then I will turn around and I will forget it. Plus, I have a very weird name, and so people usually remember my name and I don't remember theirs, okay? I recently ran into a classmate from high school, and I totally remember her personality. I even remember what clothes she wore when we were in high school, but I could not remember her name. And it was very, very embarrassing. So just like me, many students were discriminated because of this. I mean, we didn't do it in a negative way or we didn't do it on purpose, but many of us didn't feel like the school was was a place for us to learn because that's not how we were presented information. I have a friend, he's from Portugal, and he's a dropout from college. Okay, he stopped going to college, but nowadays he develops apps for really big companies. Okay, he travels around the world, and people who have college degrees hire him to do this. The reason why he dropped out wasn't because he couldn't do good at school, it's just that he didn't feel that he could learn that way. So he self-studied himself. He learned a lot from YouTube. That's what he says, okay, if you talk to him. He would look at videos, he will tell people, and he developed an app that's going on around right now in which you can request information from anyone around the world if you want to learn how to develop apps, if you want to know how to code. So it could be very specific, okay? So it's kind of like an Uber app, but for getting information. And he's connecting people around the world. So you don't even have to be in the same place to get information nowadays, okay? Just by the show of hands, how many of you know for sure or almost sure that you're a visual learner? Okay. Auditory? Nobody? Okay, so the rest, would you care? Kinesthetic? Well, most of us are kinesthetic, but do you know another part of it? Auditory, okay. Anybody else? Something that's not auditory, visual, or kinesthetic? Because those are like the most common, but sometimes we have a few more. Anybody else? Yeah, I'm a combination of kinesthetic. I cannot stand still, okay? I have to move. So, plus, for the part of Mexico that I'm from, I'm very tall. Here, I'm average, but from the south of Mexico, I'm very tall. So I used to always sit on the back of the room, or they will sit me there because I will be in the middle of the way for people to see. But I loved it, and because I always had to like stand up. I cannot stand still for very long periods of time. Okay, so Okay. Did you know that the brain is capable to absorb 36,000 visual images every hour? Okay. Nowadays, are you soccer fans? Anybody here soccer fans? Okay. World Cup followers? Okay. More or less. After Mexico lost, you lost hope too, right? Okay. So, so the reason why I ask you is because it was a trending topic, okay? And I'm a soccer fan too. So, do you have an idea of how many images are shared when it's how many images is necessary for it to share so that it becomes a trending topic in any social media?
Including memes?
Yeah, all of that are images. Okay, how many either videos or images are supposed to be shared so that you can become a trending topic? You know, anybody? Anybody? Okay, you only need 10,000. Okay, you only need 10,000. Okay, in order to become a trending topic. But then from there you go, depending on how many shares you have and how many times your hashtag is shared, then you get order from the first to the bottom. Okay, so that's why a lot of people like to use hashtags. Any hashtag users here love to hashtag their pictures? Nobody? Okay, no, you don't say best teacher ever, best English teacher, like every hour, okay? Okay, good. Then the brain relies on the eyes as a primary channel of sensory input, okay? Everybody here is able to see, right? Okay, imagine yourself being in a room when it was like completely dark, except for a spotlight right on top of you, okay? So can you picture that? Now imagine yourself in the same situation, but instead of being on land, that you are in the middle of the ocean. Okay. Now imagine that somebody asks you to swim just a few meters from where you are. Would you do it? No? Why not? To swim a few meters. Let's say that you are here. This is the middle of the ocean. It was completely dark except for a spotlight right on top of you. And then somebody tells you that you will be safe if you swim to maybe where the corner of the room is. But you are not able to see it. Okay? Would you do it?
Yeah.
You would? Okay, excellent. Anybody, you will be afraid of sharks? Okay. By show of hands again, who would, yes, who would do it? Who would say yes? Okay. Okay. And then who would not do it? Who would refuse to do it? Okay. Those of you who refuse, why would you refuse to do it?
Sharks.
Because of sharks? How do you know they're sharks? It's completely dark. Sharks are everywhere. Okay, great. What else?
Because I can't swim.
Because you can't swim. Okay. What if your life depended on it? Do you think you could at least try?
Maybe, but I think that it will be useful.
Okay.
Because
You will still drown. I mean, if you don't know how to, I will at least try, right? Okay. Anything else? There's no visual evidence because we're used to look at things, right? Even just taking a step forward, I would have a very hard time doing it, okay? Because I would be going to the unknown. Even if somebody assured me that I was going to be safe, I would still hesitate. I don't think I would just go, yes, okay, let's go, okay? But the reason why is because I cannot see what's coming. And as humans, we are coded, if you may, to receive information before we try to do something, okay? That's why we always call it, we overcome our fears, because we're always fearful of the unknown. Otherwise, we would not have to be able to have that skill to overcome something, because there's always fear. Now, this is how students feel in the classroom sometimes when you tell them, well, this works, but if it's not suiting them for the way they learn, then they have a hard time doing something. This happened to me a lot in my classrooms, okay? So, we read non-text how many times faster than written text? 60,000, okay? A lot of you maybe didn't read the number before. Maybe a lot of you look at the emojis before you read this, right? Every time I look at that emoji, I always hear somebody go, oh, okay? I can just picture it, okay? But I told you I'm not auditory, but if I have an image, then I can put things together. Okay, so 60,000 times faster. Okay? So what do you see? Can somebody tell me this in less than 30 seconds? Just read the whole thing. Somebody give it a try. Ready, set, go. Okay. What if I had a collage with all of this? Would you be able to read it faster? At least get the information and the meaning from what I'm presenting to you? Yes, it would have been a lot faster, right? It always takes us less time to read that kind of information. So given that, reading now is not linear, okay? It is multimodal. You need a lot of your senses, a lot of modalities to read something. He mentioned mimes, okay? What other kinds of things do we have going on around that are super easy to read? Just right now, if you wanted to take notes, some people take notes, some others will take pictures, because that's how you used to. I see the mothers of my students when I teach kindergarten coming and asking for the homework, and then they always take a picture, okay? And they still forget what the homework was, right? Okay? Text do not just have text, okay? We read images too, okay? If you were going to a country where you had no idea what language they spoke, or for example, if I was going maybe to Japan, okay, I would have no idea what their symbols mean. But if I was looking for a bathroom at an airport, what would I look for? A person, okay, a woman, yeah, hopefully, because then I will be going into the boys' room, okay. What other images do you read that you could read anywhere in the world? What kinds of symbols? Food, for example? A hamburger, okay. The smoking one or not smoking one, right? The utensils too, okay. The gas station, the train station, the telephone, okay. Nowadays, if you show a little kid a sign for the telephone, sometimes I go, what is that? Okay, I recently went on a road trip with my niece and my nephew, and the little one is 4 years old, and he asked me what the telephone sign was for, okay? Because it's a retro telephone, right? He's not used to seeing those kinds of telephones. And I was amazed. I was like, well, first I felt old, then I was amazed, okay? Because you see, now you get older when it comes to literacy day by day, because then you get a phone next day. You bought a new phone today, and tomorrow there's a new version of it, okay? And so everybody feels old, everybody feels out of date, and that's also a way into we feel pushed to do things, okay? So I'm going to show you a few images that we read now, okay? And by the time I end with these images, you're going to tell me what you get from these images, okay? So I'm just going to stay on each for a few seconds. Okay, so what information did you get from the images that I showed you? Oh, you need to get on your car. Okay, great. But see, we laugh, but that's what he got. That's what sparked his attention when he looked at that image. How to build a car. Okay, excellent.
It's a good idea to work for Microsoft.
It's a good idea to work for Microsoft, right? But in a collaborative way, because it said teamwork, right? How do you know it's teamwork? Because there was lots of little people, okay, on top of each other. There wasn't just one big one. There were so many doing something, right? What else? What are the first one? Nobody has spoken about the first one.
Mexico City is crowded.
Mexico City is crowded. Okay, I know. I know the pain, okay? I come from there. Okay, so with this image timing, the 21st century is full of images everywhere. Now, as Michael West says, now is the time that we need to rethink what we mean by the word literacy. Remember before I asked you, what did we mean by literate before? Somebody who would read written text. Now we have to rethink it, okay? Do you agree or disagree with this? Agree? Okay. Then it says traditional definitions of literacy are insufficient if we seek to provide students with the futures they deserve. I love the last part of this quote. Okay, the futures they deserve. When, can you say that again?
Poetic.
Yeah, it's poetic. But why is it poetic? Because this is about education. I mean, it sounds poetic, but it can be, it can become true. Okay, it's not that utopic. It's not that far from what we need to do. The reason why I love it is because I always focus on the student. Okay, I grew up learning, focusing with all the focus on the teacher, what the teacher knew, what the teacher could do, okay, if the teacher was great or not. And it's not a bad image, and I'm not saying it's bad, but my part as a student in the process of learning was completely lost in the way I saw it, okay? Everything was about the teacher. How many resources did the teacher have, okay? How many awards, how many presents did I have to give the teacher, okay, for how good she or he was? And I did have excellent teachers. Not all of them were great, but I did have a lot of great teachers, and that's why I became a teacher eventually. I also come from a family of teachers. But I love now that we are putting a lot of the focus on the students. Why? Because they are learning. Yes, we learn with them, but our jobs should be focused on what the students can and will be able to do. But not only that, it's not only ability, it's that they actually deserve it, okay? They deserve it. It doesn't matter how far behind they're falling, okay? They still deserve to have all of these things. And you have the power to share it with them and to explore it in a way that works for them, okay? So you're providing something that they actually deserve. And the way we do this is by thinking of the worlds they are going to be facing, okay? The things that they are going to be facing in the future. Every time I come across a student who says, I hate English, I'm like, you have to pick something else to hate. You can't hate this. Okay, why? Because by the time you graduate from college, you will need English, okay? English won't care if you like it or not, okay? You will need it. I recently applied for a job that I wanted with all my heart and more, okay? And I went through every single filter. I went through them and I thought I was going to get the job, and then the last filter was if I was fluent and to a certification level in another language, not only Spanish, not only English, not even my signing that I do, I had to speak another language. Okay? And because of that, because I'm not fluent to a certificate level, I did not get this job. Okay? So imagine if at my age, I'm not getting jobs that I want, because it's not only any job. It was something that I truly wanted because I didn't speak another language at a certification level. Then imagine what your students are going to face. Okay, so just like computers in the past, back in the day, okay, back in my day, if you knew how to do things with computers, then you will be the greatest candidate for a job. Now, knowing languages, not only English. We now talk about this practice not as ELT anymore, but just as language teaching in general. And we're seeing how cross-curricular it is. Among every single language that you teach, most of the approaches now are coming together. So we don't talk about just English, we talk about language teaching. Okay? So students do deserve it, and they should get it. Okay? So now, after we said all of these poetic things, what is literacy? Okay? Can one of you please go ahead and read this for me?
Literacy is
Thank
the
you.
ability to identify, understand, interpret, create, communicate, compute, and use printed and written materials associated with varying contexts.
Okay. All of the things that you have to do with information. Okay? Everything is about abilities or competencies, as we call them nowadays. Okay? What is it that you can do with the information that you receive? It's no longer the time when you have to memorize, recite, or just identify, right? You could identify words, you can identify maybe what parts of speech they are, but if you don't know how they work, how you can react in different contexts and different uses of the language, then it kind of doesn't really make sense, okay? You have to be able to know what you're doing and how you're doing it and when and for what purpose, okay? So for me, for example, my dad, before I went to college, because I went to college abroad, he said that I needed to learn a set of skills. One of them was learning how to change a tire, a flat tire on the car. I was going to a place where it was going to snow for maybe 7 months during the year. And not only did I have to learn how to change a flat tire, but also to put the chains on the tires for the times when the snow came. And I was like, putting chains on tires, what does that mean? I mean, flat tires, chains, for me, it didn't make sense until the first time that I had to do it. He taught me, he even wrote the instructions, but we were never able to do it in the cold because in Mexico City it's not that cold. So one time I was driving down a canyon, it was super dark, and there was a lot of snow, and I knew I had to do what my dad had told me. It took me a long time. I had to have someone stop so they could help me, okay, because I didn't have the necessary skills. I had the knowledge, but not the skills, okay? And so I had to stay on the road for a couple of hours until somebody came down, and so I could ask for help, okay? So sometimes this happens with our students. We tell them everything. We tell them step by step what to do, okay, what to know, but we don't tell them how they can use it, okay? Especially when it comes, somebody here was talking about phonics, right? Or even production. They know everything. They can spot what the perfect form of a verb is, maybe, or a structure, okay? They know when it's continuous. But then if we ask them, what is the use of every single part of the language, then they go, what? Okay? Maybe even with present simple. The way we learn languages also has a big impact, okay? So in the 21st century, communication requires not only to interpret information, but to interpret visual information. Now this is for the generality because there's of course people who are blind or hard of sight, but for the standard, as we may call it for the majority, it's important that we know how to process visual information because then we can help somebody. I don't know if you've seen this video that's going on around on Facebook. There's a video about two friends. I think they're friends. I can't remember their family or friends, but one of them is blind, okay? It's also about the World Cup, okay? And then this other person helps them see without seeing, okay? What's going on and the excitement. So how are you going to help others who are probably in need if you don't have the skills necessary to do so? Okay. So in the 21st century, there's literacies that we now have to put together. Okay, we have visual literacy, which we will be focusing on. We will talk a little bit about cultural and media literacy too, okay, but mostly visual literacy. These are the literacies of the 21st century skills. I attended a course for resume writing and editing and revising for this job that I just told you about. And I had to rethink the way I wrote my resume. Now I have to include all of this. Okay, I have to say, how is it that I can do things applied to that job if I have the skills? So one of the questions during the interviews was how I could bring cultural aspects to the job, okay? How culturally diverse I was. And at the beginning I didn't think I was, but then as we started talking about it, then I knew that I had gone abroad to college. I have friends from many different parts of the world, and I connect with them every day. I also, as you heard, teach English online. And I teach English to kids in China, okay? I teach English to people in Samoa, in Africa. So we connect on the internet, and I teach them. And at first, it was very hard for me not to have them in front and to see how they reacted, okay? Sometimes I don't even have their cameras on for internet connection purposes so that we get a smooth connection. So not being able to see how they react and how they're learning, for me, that was difficult. Nowadays, it's a little bit better. But that brings cultural aspects to your life and then the way you see things. So when you go and work with a team, then you can collaborate with different people because you have talked to different people from different areas. Okay? So focusing on visual literacy. Can anybody just guess what is visual literacy? This is not a test, okay? I just want to know what's in your mind, okay? So what do you think is visual literacy? It's my nephew. Okay. He knew it's a drawing of something, right? But he didn't know what it was. Great. Anything else? Any other ideas? You don't have to give me a dictionary definition. I just want to know what you think.
The information that you're getting from an image.
Okay, the information that you're getting from an image. Understanding what you see. Exactly. Anything else? Interpreting the image. Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay.
Or you could use them to communicate something else.
Use it to
Use
communicate.
emojis and you know what they mean.
Exactly, okay? And it also depends on the context, right? Because you can send the same emoji to different people and it means different things, right? And so, the UNESCO says visual literacy, the ability to read, write, and respond to and interpret visual images. Then we have learning to see and create visual images is essential to the learning process. This is the key to pre-reading, but also an activity that remains with us always. Sorry for the typo. It was an, not an. Okay? Now, I love this second one just because it involves both ways. It's not just input. Okay? Literacy means receiving things and then actually being able to do something with it. Okay? Just like when we read any articles from the newspaper or any books. Okay? So it's not only what you receive, but also what you create. Okay? And it's also a big part of pre-reading. And then images are nowadays a fundamental part of communication. There's no way you can communicate with someone unless you do it with certain images. I have another niece who lives in the United States. She's 7 years old. But as she was growing up, we have to have contact through technology. I usually don't like when little children have a lot of technology available to them, okay, for many hours, not that they won't have it, just so that they don't have a lot of time with it, based on the development. But with her, that's how we started talking and communicated. And the way we did it was through emojis. And I had to learn this new language of emojis because I never used them before. And then I had to learn what they meant to her, okay, when she sent them. Because sometimes she will send something like, what is she saying? Okay, so I had to decode that information. But in order to do that, I had to get in context and try to connect with how she was thinking all of these emojis, right? And so they're very, very fundamental. I want to show you a video, but for some reason it doesn't work here. And I just don't know now how to get out of here so that I can show it to you. Because I don't have a keyboard. Okay, I think I'm going to have to go. There's a keyboard inside here. See? Information is valuable. If I knew that before. No, that's okay. Is this, yeah, it is connected. Okay, nice. See? Okay. So I'm going to show you a video for, and I probably should have shown you the slide first. I was thinking about this. So visual thinking strategies is what we now have to bring to the classroom. Okay, how to be able to do things with the information we receive. Okay, this is an approach, actually, visual strategies. Okay, and we're going to watch a video by a few people, and some of them are the creators of this method. So let's look at it, and we're going to talk about it. Okay. Is the volume all right for everyone?
In terms of visual literacy and critical thinking, images can be very powerful tools for communicating messages, and people need skills to be able to interpret those messages and have thoughtful responses.
Caring about visual literacy is caring about knowing. It's caring about sort of exploring in deep and serious ways. It's about examining to try to sort of understand things. In contemporary culture, it's become all too endemic to take things on face value, to not think, to not probe, to not ask for evidence, to be manipulated as a result of that. And so we see that all around us in the decisions that people make.
Being visually literate and critical thinking go hand in hand, and one develops the other.
So someone who's visually literate is capable of accommodating multiple interpretations, understanding that we can generate multiple interpretations, and is much more forgiving of other people's interpretations of exactly the same thing.
Most people, they take in millions of images and they don't think about most of them. trained to engage your senses, especially your visual sense, you will understand that the process of vision is the engagement of what it is that we're looking at. So this flow of vision to cognition to memory is the essential ingredient of being able to think critically. It's not critical in thinking if you just don't notice anything that you see. It's only critical when you take the time to process the engagement. So the ability to take on knowledge, the ability to accumulate new knowledge is essentially critical thinking.
So being visually literate matters because we live in an increasingly visual world. But it's super important because we need to be critical of these things. We need to call out things that are wrong, or we need to not be misled by certain types of images.
The ability to interpret the same data set, the same image, in lots of different ways is a form of critical thinking.
Hi. So, any thoughts about this video? Where was the video shot? Oh. At a museum, okay? Sorry, let me just, I didn't pause it correctly. Okay, so it's nice that you noticed that it was a museum because you may think, well, why? As you can see, Wine is a museum educator, okay? This is where visual literacy started to make noise, okay? He was tired of people just coming through museums and not look at things and not think about them, just taking less than 15 minutes to go through the whole museum, okay? Instead of standing in front of something and see how you can react to it. So that's why it's important also to connect with different parts of the world and different people, because that's how you start seeing new things, okay? And so the method proposes the following questions. Okay. What is going on in the image? What did you see that makes you say that? Okay. And what more can you find? So if you think about it, this will be a way to have skills for life. In general, everything that we see, we experience, we should question it, okay, in such a way so that we know, okay, so we know who we are, what do we want to become. And in that way, we become even more diverse. We can bring something to the world, and we can also connect. And sometimes we have to agree to disagree with other people, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't connect with them, okay? So you may have different points of view, but that doesn't mean you couldn't collaborate and communicate and convey meaning. Sometimes different things bring wonderful things to your life, okay? I was faced with teaching English to people who didn't share a language with me. And for me, that was very, very difficult because I always relied on the resource that if they didn't understand, I could use a language that we had in common. But then when I went to Samoa, I was completely out of words, okay? Had no idea. Plus, I didn't even have a classroom. We had to teach it on the beach, okay? And so you have to come up with different resources. But the way I was able to do that is because I had other teachers who shared different ideas and said, well, you are not always going to be in the classroom, so you must learn how to be resourceful. Every time you come across something that's difficult is an opportunity to develop certain skills or to find out that you can be great at doing something that you never thought could be possible, okay? So thinking of this, okay, let's talk about some elements of visual literacy, okay? Every time you use a visual in class, whether it's video or an image or even sometimes text with images, okay, you promote interest, you promote curiosity, okay? Your students are curious about things. Sometimes we don't even know because we don't give them a chance, okay? I recently showed my students a picture that I will show you at the end, okay, but it's about an aquarium. And one of them has never seen the sea, okay? He had an idea, he's seen drawings and pictures, but he has never seen it live, okay? And another student said that maybe for the project for the end of the year, we should fundraise so that we can take this student to go see the sea. I don't know if that's even going to become a reality because these are children from elementary school, but can you imagine if we can make that possible? So somebody was thinking about somebody else, okay, on the things that they could do. Because somebody already experienced it and it was great to them, they want to share this experience with this other person who they probably never thought or never knew that hadn't seen the same things, okay? It helps you identify symbols, pictorials, and letters. Specifically for pre-reading purposes, this is very, very important. Students start reading from the minute they look at images. They can count letters. They can see the mechanics of the language even before they understand every single part of the system of the language. So it is very important. If children do that, then speakers of foreign languages do that too in the process. We get in a part where there's input. Reading will be very, very important also for your students. If you cannot make your students read a full book, you can create infographics, okay? You can create different images that combine both visuals and text and written text so students get more motivated to do that. The phonology awareness. This one I would like you to elaborate on with me. How do you think visuals can support phonology?
They give context.
Okay. What else? Okay.
For example, working with minimal pairs so they can
Okay.
make association.
Okay. Anyone else? Are we thinking visuals only as images, or are we also thinking of videos? Okay. Okay. So when it comes to videos, you also get authenticity. Okay. You get language from around the world too. You don't only get the sample from your English teacher, you get samples from around the world and from people who are connecting through the use of English, even if they're not native speakers. So also it's motivational for students and it does support a lot of the phonology awareness. Okay. English is spoken in so many countries and by so much people nowadays that we are even triple the size of the number of the native speakers of the language. And there will be a time when they will have to also learn certain skills so they can understand what we say, okay? It will be soon enough, you will see that we have to do that. Even with call centers, some people that I know that are native speakers and they live in the United States or in Australia, they say, well, I get people calling me from India or from Colombia, and sometimes I don't even know what they're saying, and I'm trying to get past a problem, and I call them and I don't know how to understand them. Okay, so it is very important that we have phonological awareness for the use of the language. Making sense of vocabulary, because vocabulary, it's also non-linear, okay? It has to be dynamic. Vocabulary doesn't make sense unless it's put into context. What's the point of knowing all of your irregular verbs if you don't know how to use them in a sentence, okay? And awareness of print. There's very many different ways in which you can print images, and this takes you also to different text types and genres too. Even within an image or currents of art, you have different types of images too, and it's very, very important. And developing narrative skills. This is my favorite one, okay? Why? Because production right now, we're struggling with that because students are not reading text, written text. So it's very hard for them to write more than a couple of sentences or write with just a few letters and saying LOL. Some people don't even say, oh, ha, 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 they just go LOL. Even when they're speaking, okay, face to face, they're like, oh, LOL. Hashtag, I love my life, okay? So see how images are also being part of the language and it's transforming it. So it's important to learn. My dad was asking my 8-year-old niece, why would she sometimes say hashtag something? She's like, I don't know, somebody at school is doing it. So I just thought it was cool, okay? So, but see how everything makes an impact, okay? So we are living the visual age. A lot of us look at the screens of our phones a lot more than we look at people, okay? I am trying to go on a visual fast, but it's hard because my job depends a lot on the use of the phones and visuals, Okay, so sometimes it's very, very hard not to look at my phone because I get a lot of things, especially images. Working now for National Geographic, I get lots of images. And so I have also to learn how to use that information so that I can portray it when I go and try and teach something. Okay. What do you think of when you see this? Somebody already reacted, and I love that. But what do you think of? Okay. Okay. Do you think this is a true definition of happiness?
Having fun? Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. You said having fun.
It reminds me
Okay.
of childhood.
Okay. Why?
Because we played outside all the time and we laughed a lot.
Okay. Anyone else? Does anybody else see something different from happiness in this picture? Okay. I spoke at a school recently, a high school in Mexico City, a part of Mexico City. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Santa Fe. So it's like the high end of places in Mexico. A lot of the people say, why are you labeling this picture happiness? They don't have cell phones. Look at where they're living. They're poor. Okay. So depending on the experiences that we go through, that's how we react to things. Somebody smiled. Okay. Somebody laughed the minute they saw this. When I see this, this also reminds me of my childhood. Okay, I was outside all the time. I didn't play video games until I was probably in the last semester of college, and because I got a roommate who that's the only thing she would do, play video games. But I had no idea how to play them. Okay, I still go like this on the controllers when I play them. Okay, so I'm not literate when it comes to video games. Okay. So when it comes to images, we have to learn how to evaluate them. If you talk to somebody who is a photographer or who likes to look at art, they will tell you that this is the 3 criteria that you use when you look at images. Okay? Light, composition, and moment. If you think of your favorite images, these elements are probably there. For example, one of my favorite paintings is A Night of the Cafe by Van Gogh. Okay? And I love it because of the light, okay? Because it's something at night, but it's so full of light. I just love it. And I even have a print, a replicate on aluminum, kind of like an aluminum foil, so that I get more of that about the light, okay? Composition and moment. So people sell you things with images, specifically the moments. Right now I show you the happiness one, and somebody went already through the childhood. Okay, it shows you a moment that you can connect to. This is what movie makers do too. You go to a movie and sometimes you cry if you're me, okay? And you think, and you wonder why? Well, because you connect with certain content, okay? Because somebody who was great at putting an image together was able to make me cry. And I just find that amazing. Somebody that didn't know what I was going through was able to put together a series of acts or images so that I was able to go through an emotion. At some point, he or she didn't know when I was going to watch this movie and how I was going to feel when I was watching it. And yet, we still connected. Okay? So, let's give it a try. Okay? I'm going to show you some pictures, and you're going to try to tell me if they have the 3 criteria. And then by the end, you're going to show your hands to tell me what's your favorite one. Okay? Okay, so moment was there. Okay. What else? Light. Composition. Okay. Great. Light. Okay. What kind of moment? Because on this one you didn't go, oh. Okay. Okay, for you, you're not sure what it is. Now that we're talking about images, now you're like, I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. They seem like they're lost. Okay. One of the students, when they look at this, they say family. Okay. So as I told you, everybody looks at different things, right? He said that there's that moment when I played with my brother, okay, my older brother, and so I see that. So he saw more the composition than the moment or the light, right? What about this one? So moment is there. Bad moment. Okay, bad moment for the gorilla, great moment for the photographer. I'm sorry. Okay, so, but this is probably something that you are not, it's not that you don't know that it's happening, but once you see the picture, that it creates a certain emotion. Okay, so somebody, sometimes they have said, how cool to be so close to a gorilla. Okay, they went past the fact that they were hunting this gorilla. Okay, and so somebody else said, well, that's different. That's from another culture. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. Okay, and so sometimes with Mexican culture, when I talk to people around the world, and sometimes they tell me, we eat this, and I'm like, really, you eat that? And then they tell me, you eat every single part of a pig, so why are you asking me? Why do I eat that? And then she said, you eat insects, so come on. Okay, so it's true, we see things in a different way. Okay, what about this one? It's a swing. It's a girl on a swing. Okay. Okay. And the mom is.
The mom, she's swinging. The mom.
Well, the girl is swinging, but the mom is back there. Okay. And she's making ropes. Okay. So this, for example, for me, it takes me back also to my childhood because my grandma used to weave. She used to also knit. So every time I would go to her house, I had a swing there. And she will be working, and I will be having fun on the swing. Okay? So, image rather than writing is now the center of communication. If you want to communicate something, you either use an emoji or my personal least favorite is the image through WhatsApp groups. Okay? I absolutely hate WhatsApp groups with all my heart. Okay? If I can avoid being in one, I do it, but sometimes you can't. Okay? I feel that it's a very misunderstood idea, okay, of communicating, because you should only communicate things which are of interest to every single member of the group. If there is something that is personal, you feel only one person in the group is going to be able to appreciate it, then you should do it through a private message. Okay, but we Mexicans really absolutely suck at WhatsApp groups. Okay, if you see it in my view, if you see it in somebody else's view, we are experts, right? They just receive an image and they send it to every single contact. I'm like, why are you sending me this? Okay, especially because I use WhatsApp for my job, and so I get sometimes 1,000 messages, and I'm like, this is not important. Don't send it to me. But for them, it was. Okay, it created a moment, something that they felt it was worth sharing. Okay, so this is the new media age. Okay, and it depends on how you see it. I am more on the positive side now, but at the beginning I was very sad that the screen has replaced the book as the dominant medium of communication. I love people who write books. I love books myself. Okay, I have a hard time reading books in a digital manner. Okay, I have a digital reader and I can't read books like that. I'm missing the smell and the feeling and just like getting a new book and smell it and just having, for me, that's just a whole different experience. But if you talk to my brother, he loves his e-reader. Okay, it's like books take too much space because he also travels a lot, and so he loves his e-reader. I can't do that. I have to be able to write on them or color them. Remember how I told you that I process information? So for me, the e-readers are not helping me do that. Okay. Now, I include this because I was part of that population, okay? But if you think about it, if you're very honest, if you think of the results on your exams or in general from your groups, okay? Can you pinpoint a few students that maybe will benefit and will do a lot better if they had this kind of teaching in their lives? Now, I'm not saying this is the only method, okay? I'm just saying it's very important to include it in our practice, okay? There are very many different types of learning, but this is one that it's becoming even natural to students, okay? If you see little babies, once they look at a screen, they even reach for them or they focus on them because now it's part of our lives, okay? And Children are great imitators. So when they see somebody on the screen all day long, what do? They do the same. Okay? So what kind of learner are you? In this case, I'm just presenting to you the auditory sequential learner and the visual spatial learner. Okay? So remember, somebody said there's a mix. I think it was somewhere around here. Okay? So usually when you're auditory, you like to follow instructions. Okay? You like sequences. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's why you're very good, because when you listen to things, because you can keep track of things like that. If you're visual, you're usually spatial. Okay? So you think of things as to what space they cover and where they go. That's why it's difficult to be auditory too. There's some people who are both visual and auditory, but that combination is very rare. Okay? So as you can see, they're both very different. The idea is to provide a variety of activities so that students get a chance to learn some parts and to enjoy the learning process, not only think of it as something boring or something that drags them out of the bed so they have to do it. Okay, because learning, it's not valuable unless you appreciate it and have fun with it. Okay? So, why use images in the classroom? Okay, you can use it to very many different purposes. These are some of them. So please choose one that's your favorite and shout it out.
Generate interest.
Okay, generate interest. Great. Anyone else? Provoke. That's my favorite too. Okay. Yeah, great. Okay, that's one that the students love, okay, because it provides support. Organizing your ideas, it's something great when it comes to learning a language. And so providing the visual part for it, it's a great thing. Anyone else? No? Okay, let's move along, okay? So back in the day, we thought that we were ready to do something by nature, okay? What do I mean by this? If you were born in a family of bakers, you would eventually become a baker, okay? It was in your nature, it was in your blood. If you were born in a family of doctors, then you will eventually become a doctor because you were born to be a doctor, okay? And this is the idea that I still feel it's current in our country, in our culture, okay? We feel we are only born to be one thing and only one thing. Nowadays, the new trend is to think that you can be nurtured to be anything you want. That's why critical thinking is becoming part of the conversation in education. Why? Because you can acquire the abilities to do something. Some of you may be predisposed, and genetics also help to do certain things. But if you wanted to do something, you could always do it, okay? You can be a visual learner, but if you become blind, that doesn't mean that you will not learn anything. You will have to overcome that and become a different learner now, because you could, okay? That's human nature. We like to evolve. We like to do new things. We don't like to stay still, okay? So thinking about nurturing, okay? The American Library Association talks about now information literacy. Visual literacy goes along with information literacy. Why? You have to teach your students the skills so that they can discriminate what information is true and what's not true, what's important and what's not, okay? Specifically for academic purposes, this is a great skill for them to acquire because we are so used to Google things, okay? And we can still Google it, but we also have to know what is reliable and what is not. What is it that we can use just for entertainment and what things we can use for academic and for the workplace purposes, okay? So, as you can see, it's a set of abilities, okay? And then it's so that you can recognize when information is needed and have the ability to locate, evaluate, and use effectively the needed information. So maybe like when we're looking at the image for Microsoft, you mentioned, right, that it was great to work for them, okay? From that, maybe if I ask you what was the best company to work for, then that would be the needed information. If I asked you what is important for a team to be successful, maybe you would have said collaboration of teamwork. So depending on what is needed, you are supposed to be able to get the information and then provide it. That's what makes you a skillful person. Now think about this, okay? How many hours does it say that a student spends in front of a screen? 44, okay? More than 6 hours a day. Now, how much time does a person usually, or does a child usually spend in school? During the day, how many hours? 7, 8, depending on what school you go to, right? And then the rest of the day, then that means that they're in front of the screen, right? I selected this image because what is the adult doing? Reading a book, okay? And the kids, so that is it a she? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so the adult can read the book, then the girls are on the screen, okay? So my dad calls the screens, usually the tablets, the nannies, okay? Because that's what happens. Yes, students are able to see, and it's a little bit of natural to them to look at screens and to be visually literate, but that doesn't mean that we should give them all the time to be on it. And if they are going to make use of these screens, they should be able to know how. So why is information literacy important? Why do you think it is? You can read it from there, or you can just give me your personal opinion. Why is it important for students to be literate when it comes to information and what to use from it? Okay.
It is easy to lose track of whatever it is you were trying to write.
Mm-hmm.
And, even if you know how to write. So if you don't know then how to evaluate the information you want to present, then you're going to be talking about something completely different, and you're adding so much information, and then the reader is left like, what? And your idea is going to be completely lost.
Okay.
It's not going to be useful.
Exactly. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you're not skilled, it's just that you were not effective. Okay, so it goes from having information, then to have the skills, but then also how to use those skills so that it's effective for the purpose that is needed. Okay, so for example, if I was here and I was going to speak to you and then I was speaking French, or I would probably signed, I would be totally out of my mind, right? Because I didn't know what the purpose of the presentation was. Or if I spoke in Spanish and explaining to you something that is applicable to English language teaching, then that also wouldn't be effective, right? Because this is what we do, okay? So again, it goes from visual literacy, and I told you that the skills were also for information or media, which we just talked about, but now we also have to talk about culture. I personally think that there's no way you can learn a language without knowing what culture it comes from and all the cultures that are using it, okay? If you speak Spanish, just like everyone is trying to do also around the world, because there's at least one Mexican in every corner of the world, as my brother thinks, okay? Then you know that it depends on what part you go, people speak different, okay? They use different words to express meaning. Even in Mexico, if you go from one part to the next one, okay, words change and they have different meanings in the context. So, for example, I learned the word chulo in this northern part, and I've heard it before, but I've never really used it, okay? But you have to have the context, or having someone use the word in a context to understand it, because for me at the beginning, it didn't, okay? I used to think that Spanish speakers, or at least in Mexico, didn't use as many words in English, but then I go to Chihuahua and then it's just like a full mix, okay? It's true Spanglish, okay? Nos vamos a parquear la troca, and I'm like, what are you talking about, okay? And so I'm like, are you speaking English or are you speaking Spanish? Please speak one of them, okay? So, but if you go there, it's normal for them, okay? Everybody, even old people, use that kind of language. It's not a trend, okay? But if you go to the southern part from where I'm from and somebody tells you, que milaneses, que nos visteces, then I understand that. But maybe somebody else doesn't, okay? Somebody recently told me that well, it's not a very good experience, but I was riding the metro system in Mexico, and somebody tried to sell me a cell phone, and then told me it was from Roberto Carlos, and I had no idea who Roberto Carlos is, okay? And then, but I was having such a hard time because I wanted to say, well, of course I didn't want the cell phone, okay? But I just couldn't say no because I had no context whatsoever so that I could reply with a smart answer so they will start offering the cell phone for me. I did not understand why they were saying that. Then I go and I tell my friend, he's like, nimbe, it was robbed, okay? Roberto Carlos, it was robbed. That's why he said it that way, so that people didn't know that he was selling you something robbed. And I was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense, okay? But see, words and the languages are impacted also by the way we see things, okay? And culture is part of that. I have a friend from Venezuela, and we called a straw, we call it popote here, and they call it pitillo. And I always tell them, don't say that in Mexico, okay? Don't ever ask for a popote using that word, okay? Because then people will laugh at you, okay? And so things like that, okay? Some people even dare to say that Spanish is the most difficult language because it has so many countries that speak it with so many different words that it's so difficult. So the idea is that language comprehension requires not just the system and the knowledge about the language, but also, okay, a wide-ranging background knowledge of the culture it comes from, okay? Kind of like what they told you, in our country, right? Or we don't teach English like in your country. Well, of course not, because it's a whole different culture and it's needed for different purposes, okay? So, I'm gonna have the back row, everyone who is sitting all the way to the back, okay? To the count of 3, you're going to tell me as many things as you can think of when you look at these images. Ready, set, go.
Cultural diversity.
As many things as you can think of. Okay. Okay, stop. I'm going to have the second row now. Go ahead and do that. Ready, set, go. Okay, stop. I thought you guys were going to rock this one. Let's give it. Come on, guys, please. Okay. Ready, set, go. First row. Okay. Laziness. Wow. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. Great. Now let's try the next experiment. As I point at one of them, then you will tell me everything that you think of. Okay. Spanish, shy. That's it? Really? Okay. What about this one? What about this one? Supermarket. Friendship or romance. Okay. What about that one? Oh. Sorry. Okay. And then what about this one? Wow. Geishas. Okay, what about this? Cowboy, rodeo, cows. Wow, chickens. I didn't even think of that. Okay, great. I'm going to tell you what the student responses are sometimes. For this one, most of the students they say LGBT or lesbians, okay? For this one, most people say Mexican because of the bandana, okay? Seriously, okay? Yeah, see? But everybody sees things different, okay? For this one, some people say Negro, okay? Some people say grandma, some people say angry, some people said lazy, some people said boring, okay? Some people said obligation, okay? For this one, most people say ancient, okay? But the picture is very recent. They just portrayed it in black and white, okay? For this one, they do say cowboys and bulls most of the time. And for this one, most people say Venezuela. Okay? Now, it's the colors. This picture is really not from Venezuela, but it's the colors, and because everybody has been having a conversation about Venezuela lately and how we're becoming Venezuela, then that's why. Okay? So we think different things according to that, but it's also part of our culture. Okay? If you're not very religious, then maybe you think this is obligation, as one of the students did. Okay? But if you're religious enough, you say, well, grandma's trying to do a good thing for him. Okay? Yeah. Or somebody's singing and clapping, like, how can he be sleeping if they're making all that noise, right? If you've been to a church like that, you know that it's almost impossible to sleep there. Okay, so through learning about a wide variety of cultures, students begin to grasp the range of cultural possibilities. They gain confidence in their ability to deal with and enjoy whatever new, surprising cross-cultural situation they might find themselves in. Nowadays, with technology, you don't have to travel around the world to be under any circumstances where there's a cross-cultural situation. Our country is already becoming cross-cultural. A lot of people are coming now to our country, and this is a culture that we have to, a change in our culture that we have to go through. Now we have more and more people who come from different countries, and even though we don't think it is, it's changing our culture and the way we see things, because we didn't see ourselves as people who welcome other cultures. We were seeing Mexicans as people who asked others to be receptive of our culture. So now we're opening a whole different idea as when it comes to that. And along with this, I am going to close with this quote. Well, no, not close, but this is one of my last ones. So it says, what separates people is an imaginary wall. If you're a Mexican and you read this, then you probably don't like that, okay? What needs to be done,
As an American, you know.
yeah, what needs to be done is put cracks in that wall. We need to create a sustainable way of connecting with each other and creating friendships. I personally believe, because I have lived that English does that for you. It helps you put cracks in any wall, because the way people are communicating is through this language. There are many coming more and more popular, but this is the language that right now, if you want to connect with any part of the world, you should know how to use, okay? And that's why I became an English teacher, and that's why I do what I do, because I love the wide variety of opportunities this language has given me to become the best I can. And now I will close with this one, okay? The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Images give you a chance to develop skills of critical thinking. Skills that are not only applicable to language learning, but also to your life. And in a world when you are connecting with everyone and there is a lot to say, let's hope that us as being English teachers, we get to say the things that are different. And with that, I close. Thank you so much for being here. Watch your eyes because the lights are coming on.
Nimbe, muchas gracias. En nombre de Relaciones Culturales te damos este reconocimiento.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.